Welcome to the Ignited Fortitude podcast with Bobby
and Aaron.
So we've been in this little series, getting hammered over here.
Yeah.
We started when we were looking at Jesus saying, "Why do you call me Lord, but don't do the things that I command you?"
Yes.
And so we've been like, and then we looked at,
and then we start peeling back the layers of the onion, and it's like, where does this come from? What is the context of this?
I wasn't expecting it to take this long.
No, this is before.
Yeah,
Like we were like, oh, this would be a little 2-part thing, and we're moving on. Lord's like, no, you're not.
No, you're not. Says who?
Because clearly you're not tracking on this yet.
Yeah, you're on my time, not
Yes.
your time.
Yes, very much so.
So last week we talked about like taking an inventory, right? And how it's important for you to assess. Like Paul says, like, hey, like you need to examine yourself, see if you are in the faith.
Yes.
Right. And so that's kind of what we did last week. And we talked about like some of the things where Jesus says like, hey, if somebody strikes you on one cheek, turn the other cheek.
Yeah.
And we were.
But I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. Like, yeah, hard stuff. Like, total antithesis of like what you want to do in those situations.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, right? Because that's the battle. Mm-hmm. The battle is the flesh and the spirit.
Yes.
And Galatians tells us that they are at war with each other constantly. So any situation that we're rolling into is always going to be like, okay, there's your way of doing things, and then there's my way of doing things.
Yes.
And the way that the Lord wants to do things, most of the time, is not at all the way we want to do things. Right? That's why you're sitting here, right?
Oh my gosh. It's like, dude, I clearly think about that, and I'm like I just regaled the story to you about like before when I was still in the army and just got saved, and I'm like, my dad's like, what are you gonna do when you get out? And I'm like, oh, I'm going into ministry, And my dad's like, we'll discuss that later, But I had a vision of what me going into the ministry was about, and what it looked like, and how it was gonna be, right?
Oh yeah.
And no, the Lord's like, okay.
Yeah, you think it's going to be like the most like awesome and like peaceful experience.
Unicorns and roses and rainbows. And it's like, the Lord's like, that's not how any of this works. You got it right. You're going to be in my service, but how you think you're going to be in my service and compared to how I'm going to implement you, woefully different things.
I was listening to a podcast and they're talking about Vietnam and how the SAW guys just got dropped in, and like there was no evidence of them being over there. Nobody's gonna come and rescue you. And they were battling like thousands, hundreds, close to 1,000 enemies. And it's just those guys, dude. That's ministry right there, bro.
Yes, like they had like 0 rules of engagement. Sometime we're gonna talk. Maybe my old man comes to town. We got to get him on here, dude, because he had me and Dallas rolling. Dallas is my oldest son, and he's a former Ranger, right? Just got out like 2 or 3 years ago, and Dallas is raw. Like Dallas is like, I'm like, go get your brain checked because, oh my gosh. And he's like, I know, I'm just joking. I'm like, well, that's a really dark joke, Dallas. But so understand, that's where this kid's coming from. And we asked my dad, his papa, these questions about Vietnam, and the things he told us, we're like, oh man, you can't do that nowadays. What are you talking about? And he's like, what? What's the problem? We're like, that's against like all the rules. Not just the Geneva rules. It had us roll. And he's just like sitting here like, that's what we did.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my word. It's crazy time, dude. Yeah, Vietnam. Nuts.
Yeah, and so like stepping into ministry.
Yes. You because think about previous to Vietnam, right? Think about the wars. It was Korean War, and then World War II and World War I, right? And it's the golden age and all these things, and everything is remembered in these glorious, heroistic fashion, right? Vietnam. Oh my gosh, it broke all of that.
Oh yeah, morale was completely just out the window.
A show, hot mess. You shipping in cases of beer.
Drugs,
everybody's drunk.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy town, and it got put onto the television for the whole world to see, and it changed everything, right? And it's like then that whole veil of like, heroism, patriotism, and everything, and it's like dudes who died, lost limbs. Not died, dudes who lost limbs and all kinds of crazy PTSD and so on and so forth, coming home and they're getting spat on.
Yeah.
And just it broke the whole system, right?
Yeah.
Because like you said, that was the reality, right?
Yeah. And then you figure we go to war. Right, because when those guys came back, it was like, do not wear your military uniforms. None of that stuff. We're coming back. You know what I mean? And guys were like, dude, it was crazy. There was no respect for the military.
No respect.
And I remember us coming back. Honor. Yeah, and I remember us coming back from our tour. And dude, there was a parade in Tucson. Were coming in, and like people were loving, and like I remember they could spot you because of your military haircut. You were on the airplanes, like, hey, can you sit up in the front? Because you know what I mean.
Yep.
So like completely different, and our government was like, hey, we can't have another Vietnam.
No. Yeah.
We can, and and I don't want to minimize like what actually happened to the people in Nam and comparing the two. Like I'm not. What I am trying to like look at though is like you see these people falling like Christian leaders, dude. You got like think of these big name guys, like they have completely stained like Christianity. Yes. So now it's kind of like, dude, the stigma for people.
It's almost a dishonor, right?
Yeah.
And like there's zero respect. What? I mean, this dude's doing this and that dude's doing that, and it's all for money. And it's difficult because you're like, well, Lord, what's going on here? And for me personally, when I pray about that, the Lord's like, that's for me to concern myself with. I need you, Aaron, to focus on this. And he locks me back in, right? Because my field of vision is starting to get wide, and I'm like, Lord, there's a lot of stuff coming this way. And he's like, there's other soldiers, and they've got their lanes.
Sure.
Get back on your lane. Yeah. What's coming down your lane? And I'm like, all right, got it. Yeah. And he's like, all right, let's start sending rounds.
Field of fire, right?
Hey, there you go.
Field of fire.
And Ask my dad about Field of Fire. Oh my gosh.
We'll have to have a conversation.
Oh my gosh. We fired into space. We was like, space? What are you talking about? Space. Define space. And he's like, and he like put his hands up from as wide as he could. And he was like, space. Dallas and I lost it because this dude's a tank commander. We're not talking about some smoke. We're not talking about we talk about big boys, 50s, tanks, everything. He said space.
Wow.
We rolled.
Well, but that's where the enemy was coming from, though, right?
Hey, bro.
Why?
They said they were mowing down jungles.
Yeah. Because that's how it went. They were relentless, dude.
Crazy town. It's crazy town. And to see him now, because I had got 3 older brothers, and I was the only one that ever just consistently asked my father about Vietnam over and over and over. They'd slam me in the ribs, tell me to shut up because he doesn't want to talk about it. And it's like, yeah, he actually did want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But like over and over. And it's just, it's a blessing from the Lord that he's not like just sitting in a room somewhere, shaking back and forth, completely mind blown. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, he saw some horrendous things. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, dude. Especially like not on a nonstop, right?
Yes. But for the grace of God, he moves on. Love that old dude.
So the spiritual warfare
Yes.
real.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Very real. Very real. You want to share? What do you got? What do you got? What do you got for spiritual warfare this week, Robert?
We don't have time for that. But it's real. Like it's like all over the place, right? And it's like, hey, you know what? Like we said it before, right? Like our shield of faith is for those fiery darts that are coming in.
Correct.
Right? Because why are they on fire? Because the enemy wants to do damage. He's not just trying to take you out. He's trying to take everything out.
Yes.
So those arrows are on fire because you can't put out a fire and fight a battle at the same time.
Correct.
You got to pick and choose, right?
Correct.
That's why it feels like what's going on at work, and I come home and this is going on, and then my kids, and then like this, and it's like yeah, because the enemy has already just logged those in.
Yes.
But guess what? A lot of that happens is because we get off course.
100%. Yes.
Because the attacks are going to come regardless. Period. They are coming, and that's what we talked about, like those storms that are coming. Mm-hmm. Jesus says the storm is coming, but is your foundation built on sand or is it bedrock?
Right.
Right. And so, just like with that shield, like it is to extinguish the fiery darts. Mm-hmm. So sometimes we are the culprits for bringing on the spiritual warfare that ends up happening.
Yes.
And that's 100%. What he's talking about in this section right here, right? So, like, there's a few examples that he does. Do you want to?
Where do you want me to start? 32?
Yeah, let's go 32.
Oh, boy. All right. Luke 6:32.
Whoa, actually, don't. Because we'll come back to 32.
Okay.
Let's go about where he's talking about right before, where he gives the illustrations of, go 39.
Oh, you want 39? Okay.
39.
All right. Yeah, we'll give context after. And he also spoke a parable to them. A blind man cannot guide a blind man, can he? Will they not both fall into a pit? A pupil is not above his teacher, but everyone, after he has been fully trained, will be like his teacher. Why do you look at the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? My word. Or how can you say to your brother, brother, let me take out the speck that is in your eye, when you yourself do not see the log that is in your own eye? You hypocrite. First, take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take out the speck that is in your brother's eye. For there, you want me to continue?
Yeah, continue.
For there is no good tree which produces bad fruit, nor, on the other hand, a bad tree which produces good fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit.
Right there.
Woo.
Right there. A tree is identified by its fruit. Hey, what kind of tree is that? I don't know. Let's go check the fruit on it, right? So, like, I can tell you it's an apple tree, but if you go over there and it's oranges, you're like, dude, I don't care what you say it is.
That's an orange tree.
That's an orange tree. Yeah. So, like we were talking about before we were recording, I used to think like when we talk about the fruit of people's lives, and we talk about, like just like in church, in general, I used to think like, oh, well, there's a group of people that have this good fruit, and then a group of people that have bad fruit, and that the problem isn't that. The problem is that you have fake fruit, bad fruit, intermixed with the good fruit. And the bigger problem with that is, like, if it's bad fruit that's mixed in with good fruit, what happens?
It rottens the whole bunch.
That's the problem. Mm-hmm. And the problem is unfortunately, we got a lot of this stuff right here going on.
Yeah.
Right? So you got blind leading the blind.
And then in that blind leading the blind, it's that smidgen of truth wrapped in a whole lot of lies and opinion and falsehood, right?
I'd almost say it could be that, but I almost want to say it's even reverse of that. It's a whole lot of truth wrapped with a little bit of a lie, because that's how you get deceived. Mm-hmm. If it's a whole lie,
okay,
and
I got you.
You see what I'm saying?
So you're saying they're spitting a good amount of truth, and then they get that little droplet of lie, heresy that turns the whole thing up on its head. Yeah,
because we've experienced it.
Yes, 100%.
Right? Where you can have individuals that are like, wow, they're fully locked on. There's this little bit over here, but how about we just like, we're just going to excuse that. We're just going to like,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
because there's so much of this other positivity and all this other stuff. And it's like,
Clouds you.
yeah, dude.
Yeah. It definitely blinds your discernment, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And like we talked about it before, right? Like if you have a boat, like we're talking, like the problem is the drift,
Yes.
right?
Because we're not talking about like full bore motor going,
Correct.
right? We're
Yeah.
talking about
Because that's outright rebellion. We're just
Yeah.
like not even like,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
clear as
yeah,
day. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. We're talking about you actually started off with a degree or two off course, and you've got a long way to go. But a degree or two off course on a long way to go. By the time you get to where you think you're supposed to be, you are way off course.
Yeah, I forgot what they said. They did that one time, right? Like it's like from California to New York, and it was like however many degrees, and they end up in like Maine or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Some
But-
crazy town.
yeah, and it's like a very
And it's
small.
a smidge.
Yeah, it's very, very small. And here's the thing. The problem is when you're going through it, and this is where us as guys, right, where we are, and we've talked about it before, like we try to muzzle it in, we try to muscle it in, right?
Right.
And it's like, no. Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to just stop everything. Like if we talked about it, like you start zeroing in a weapon,
Yes.
right? And you're like, all right, cool, I got it in. And then it's like, all right, now let's go to the 500-yard line. And it's like, what? I'm completely off.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, well, I'm just this far off. I'm just gonna adjust.
Kentucky windage.
Yeah, dude.
It's like, no.
You can't.
No.
Because guess what? Because here's the problem, right? Yeah, you can do that and make it look good on paper. And
Yes.
hey, we just passed it and like we're good to go.
Right.
We talked about it too, right? That's good enough for government work. Yeah. No. Like you cannot do that when it comes. And that's what he's saying here. Like, and that's why I wanted to wait to 32. Look at 32. He says, if you only love those who love you, why should you get any credit for that? Even sinners love those who love them. Right. And so we can try to mask this whole thing and like, oh, well, but look at all this stuff that I have over here and look at what they're doing.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that's what he's saying right here.
Guilty of that.
Because this is what he says right here. He says he is making the whole argument, right? Like, and why worry about the speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your eye? What is he talking about here? Because we always have this like comparison thing going
100. On. Because what's the easiest comparison? It's horizontal.
Oh yeah.
If I just compare myself to Hitler and whomever else Dahmer and anyone else who I believe is like a degenerate, then I'm looking pretty good. Yeah. And the Lord's like, that's not who you're supposed to be preparing. Who you're supposed to be comparing yourself to. And I'm like, well, who am I supposed to be comparing myself to? Lord. And he's like, it's vertical, bro.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's not fair. And he's like, exactly. It's not. Like, it's instantaneously, you're like, and we've discussed it before. The instant that I take whatever current situation that I'm dealing with and bring it to the Lord and focus on what Christ did for me, instantaneously, that situation is no longer a situation.
Yeah.
It's complete rubbish, and I'm moving on, Lord.
Yeah, because anytime that you're like, well, look at what they did to me, the Lord's gonna be like, okay, if you want to pull up records, let's pull up your record. Like, we're not doing that right now.
Right.
That do to others as you would like them to do to you.
That completely, like, I think we hear it, but I don't think we actually understand it, right? Do unto others, because it's stated constantly and continuously, even by non-believers, right?
Yeah.
Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Okay, did you hear what he said? Because that's the thing. Like, so now I come in, because this is the practicalness of it, right? Yep. So now I walk into this situation and I clearly don't like him or her or whoever that is, right? Clearly don't like him for whatever biased reason that I have. And I got tons of stupid Seinfeld biased reasons to not like this person, right? And instantaneously, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. But we think it says, do unto others that you like, that you appreciate, that you put up on a pedestal, that you're cool with, as you would have to do. No. That's not what it says. There is no delineator. It's do unto others.
You know where it gets twisted? I think it's Confucius.
Oh,
Confucius has a saying where it says, don't treat people the way you don't want to be treated. Think of that, because that
doesn't even make any sense. He's got so many double negatives in it. Say it again.
Don't treat people the way that you don't want to be treated. That is... So I don't want to be treated in a certain, so don't treat people that way. Right. So I don't want to be treated this way, so don't treat me like, hey, I don't want people bothering me, so I'm not going to bother people.
Yeah, you're right. What I'm saying? That is so wrong.
And that's not what it's saying. What it's saying is like, hey, you know what? The Bible is saying, because that right there, that's where, like, if you use, and that's where a lot of people use that philosophy. Like, that's like, ultimately that's like that sense, like, I don't like that person, so I'm just going to ignore them. Well, yeah, because guess what? If somebody doesn't like you, you just want to be, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't want to have to deal with them.
And what is this saying? This is saying, I want to be loved.
Yes, because we all want to be loved. Exactly.
I want to belong to something.
Yes.
I want to get accolades when I do something that's correct. And so therefore,
when I mess up,
I want grace.
Yeah.
And I want mercy, and I want forgiveness.
Perfect example. You're driving down, you're driving downtown, right?
Yes.
You're driving wherever it is. Somebody cuts you off. Oh, I hope they get a ticket. For real? For real. Like, that's what you're going to say. Because when you're in a rush, because guess what? Your child is sick, and the nurse is calling, and you have a short time for whatever the case is, right? Like, so when you're in a rush, do you really want somebody to be like, I hope that they pull that person over? No, you don't. You hope that the same thing, like, oh, there was no cop for this individual. Like, hopefully, one, hey, you know what? If they're in a rush, like, obviously their day's probably going pretty bad. Yes. So because when I'm in a rush, because I run off of Mexican Standard Time, so I'm always running late, right?
Because you want that grace.
I want that grace, dude.
Yep.
Right? But when we say those things, that right there is just a big indicator, like, why would you say that?
Yeah.
Why do you want that to happen? Because,
Sons of thunder. Bring down hellfire on them, Lord.
And what does the Lord say? He's like, you have no idea of who you are, or who I am, and who you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he's like, that's not what we're doing here.
Yeah, that's not what we're doing here. So,
not what we're doing.
Like, it is important. And here's where it all starts. It all starts with those conversations that we're having with ourselves internally.
Yes, very much so. Like, I've said it so many. So, like, look, prior to being saved, and I'd say even initially after I was saved, right? I lied to myself like a big dog.
Yeah.
Why? Because I was wearing a monster mask, bro. And I'm like, I'm this and I'm that and I'm awesome and I do good and blah, 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 blah. And it's like skeletons up in the closet, hot messiness all over the place. And to believe that my life was going good, I had to lie to myself.
Yeah.
Because in moments of actual clarity at times when I wasn't either drunk or trying to distract myself with some other sin, in those moments of clarity, I hated myself, couldn't stand me, knew how disgusting I was, but yet to get up and keep going and perpetuate the myth.
That's how much you loved yourself.
Thank you. And the legend, I'm going to lie to myself.
Yeah. And that's why the Bible says, don't be self-deceived.
How deep is that? It's straight from the word.
Dude, why is that? Because we lie. Dude, the person that you lie to the most is yourself.
What did I just hear today? The problem with the heart
is the heart of the problem.
It's the heart of the problem.
The heart of the problem is the problem of the heart. Yeah. I love that, dude.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, dude. And that's what it is. That's what it is.
That's it.
So, but what's going to fix that? Because here's the thing. This is what's so awesome, right? when we look at this, we're like, dude, this is impossible. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Oh, I preached on that today.
Yeah, that's exactly.
We can't do this on our own. I mean, don't get silly.
Yeah, by the way, I guess we should have gotten into that, but yeah, talking about preaching today and
moving on.
This guy.
But
you did very well. Anyways, do to others as you would like them to do to you. Here's the thing. When you realize what Christ did for you, how can you not? Because even when, and here's the kicker, and like this is why, like even like you, right?
Yes.
Like me, like all of us, like Jacob. When Jacob faced the Lord, he had Esau on one side, he had Laban coming from the other side. He deceived everybody in his life. He deceived himself to get everything he wanted.
Yep.
And when the Lord finally was like, "Who are you, dude?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "I'm Jacob." Right?
Yeah.
I got nothing. Right?
Yeah.
When we have those moments, we come to the Lord, and the Lord still loves us, accepts us, gives us grace and mercy. He could have destroyed Jacob right there.
Yeah. And he said that he's not Jacob anymore. Because what's Jacob mean? Deceiver. And he said, you're not Jacob anymore.
Give him a new name.
Just watched him.
Yeah. That is
Watched him.
That is not you anymore. So when we can get to this point, and it's like, all right, I'm not doing it out of my strength, but because I know what the Lord gave me, how can I not give that to you?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, this is not like calculus. This is very basic math here. It's very basic. It's like what was given to you, measure everything based upon what was given to you.
Oh, say it again. What was
given to you, measure everything based upon what was given to you. And when you do that, you can only do what he asks you to do in love, grace, mercy, kindness, self-control, forgiveness, loving, reflecting his love upon all others that you meet. Oh. Not just the ones that we pick. Because that's your favorite, right?
Yeah.
This one, if you lend to those from whom you expect to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners in order to receive back the same amount.
Yeah. Love your enemies. Do good to them. Lend to them without expecting to be repaid. Then your reward from heaven will be very great, and you will truly be acting as children of the Most High. For he is kind to those who are unthankful and wicked.
Yeah.
He is kind to those who are unthankful and wicked.
Listen to it in the NASB. And you will be sons of the Most High, for he himself is kind to ungrateful and evil men. Think about that. Like, we're sitting here going, because that's my problem, right? I see people who, I mean, it's like been my way, like, because my dad just raised me. He's like, look, just do what you're supposed to do, bro. Just do what you're supposed to do. And so I'd be in the army, and like I'm seeing these knuckleheads not doing what they're supposed to do, and it would drive me nuts. And I mean, sometimes they get hemmed up for it, but sometimes they wouldn't. That would drive me crazy. And he's specifically saying, he's like, no. Do not let it drive you crazy, because that's not what's going on. That's not for you. Because the Lord also, he's gracious and kind of knucklehead sometimes.
He causes the rain and the sunshine to fall on the good and the bad.
Yep.
Verse 36, you must, what does yours say?
But be merciful, just as your Father is merciful.
So in NLT, you must be compassionate, just as your Father is compassionate.
I like that. Because that's it, right?
That's
the crux of the biscuit.
That's
I got to get that one from you. That is the crux of the biscuit, right? Say it again.
You must be compassionate, just as your Father is compassionate.
Because that's where it is. It's the dude that was in debt to the king for that great amount, and then he turns around and throws old boy in jail for such a minor amount. It's the same exact thing. It's like no. That's not how this works. If I have washed away your entire massive ridiculous debt that you could have never repaid to me and you don't deserve, then you need to turn around and do the same to each and every person that comes to you.
The problem is that we feel like we're giving out of our scarcity. How many times have we said, like, dude, I can't give anymore. Well, that's the problem. You're giving out of your account.
Your account, your reserve.
You have nothing.
Thank you. That's when it's so easy for me to operate, is when I wake up and I'm like, not my time, not my money, not my energy, Lord. So I'm going to need you to get me moving on this.
Bro, could you imagine, like, if I had to give $100 out of my bank account to somebody? It's going to be like, ooh, like, okay. Like, I hope you're going to be, you know what I mean? Like, there's going to be something tied to it. But if I had access to, like, Elon Musk's bank account and I'm going to give $100 from that, like, dude, it's not going to be a factor.
Care less.
That's what it's like with having it from the Lord. When we give grace, mercy, love, compassion.
And think about it like this. When you're giving out of the Lord's treasure, you're not concerned about it running out. So therefore,
dude, I'm gonna spend it for you.
You have a lack of concern because that's where stinginess comes in, right?
Yep.
Stinginess comes in when because let's just be honest. I know unsaved cats who are loving and giving, and they give to the community and so on and so forth. And it's like there is a place that lots of us have that's in our hearts that are like, I want to give. But that selfishness and that self-protection comes in, and we're like, I want to give to a degree.
Yes.
Because I
got stipulation.
I got to make sure I eat, that type of thing. But you don't operate like that when you're pulling out of the Lord's stock. The Lord's like, look, here's the stock. Let's start feeding my sheep. And you're like, okay, Lord. And you start feeding the sheep. And it's not about, like, how long have I been feeding the sheep? And it's not about how much have I been feeding them. And it's not about, well, am I going to get a break to get a meal here soon?
Doesn't matter. He's
going to take care of all that because you're doing his work. And he's going to be like, all right, break time. And you're like, already? Then you're like flipped, and you're like, already? No. Especially you, the Mexican. He's like, I'm not ready to break yet. You ain't got no quit. Bobby ain't got no quit. Bobby like comes over, and I'm already halfway through my sandwich. I'm like, Lord said we was taking a break about a half hour ago. I don't know what you was doing, but I'm eating.
It's not gonna move itself, dude. That's so funny. I'll tell you where this is practical, like just like using this like an example, like straight, right? The issue is when you put conditions on it.
Yes.
Okay. When me and my wife were beefing prior to pursuit and then coming back, and when I was like, like the Lord just completely just like that healing process, right? And when my wife told me, and we got into that little, disagreement, and she's like, well, you love conditionally, and you're supposed to be loving unconditionally. It was like, I had to play the tape back, and it's like, yeah. Because although I felt that I was doing this, and this, and this, well, then you shouldn't be upset at this, or shouldn't be this, and you shouldn't be, right? And that when I rolled that tape back, it's like, yeah, dude, you were doing that was under conditions.
Yeah.
And so that's where we fall into, and that's where it makes it hard. And that's why this, right? Because you are giving, and that's how you know. The moment that you feel like, I can't do that anymore. Why? Because you were giving and being gracious, expecting them to get it and move on, and things were going to change. No. You need to give because you are commanded to give.
I was about to say, that's our mandate.
That's it.
As believers, as walkers of the way, it's our mandate.
That's it.
And you've said it time and time again. We say it time and time again. I mean, you might be a seed planter. Yes. You might be a waterer, and if you're blessed enough to be a picker, great. Yeah. Then you get to see the fruits of either someone else's labors or yours. Yeah. But that's not often, right? You don't know what part of it that you're in. You don't know if you're planting. You don't know if you're watering. and you don't know if you're picking, but you got to get out there and garden, right?
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to. And here's the thing. Love is an action, and it's commanded us. Mm-hmm. Right?
I like it.
Like he doesn't tell you to love one another like it's a suggestion.
No.
It's like you must do this. And the evidence of you get why? Because we don't want to do it, and we only want to love ourselves.
And get this, because it's one of my favorite verses in the Bible. So we're hard-headed, right? And words mean a lot, but like actual demonstration means even more, right?
Yeah.
But God demonstrates his love towards us while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. He's like, words aren't enough for you? Got it. Here's action.
Yeah.
In progress.
Yeah.
Go forth and do my work.
That's it. Dude, go and make disciples. So, going back to where we began. Why do you call me Lord, but you don't do the things that I command you to do? What are those things?
Wow.
Right? Like we took a deep dive, like, hey, my foundation is good and strong. Isn't? Because when things get taken away from you, where are you at? When that storm is coming, what have you built it on? That's when you have to realize those things. Maybe I was building it on my perception, my understanding, my assumptions, right?
Very much so.
Like the picture that I painted,
Yes.
not the picture of the architect.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We talked about, there's all these woes, right? Like we fight for like, hey, I want to be likable and I want people to, respect me. And I want, people to like the Bible says like, woe to those who
them's earthly rewards, right?
Yeah, those are earthly rewards. That those people that you're just loved by everybody. That's a woe. That's not a blessing, right? We talk about blessed are those who are poor in spirit.
Yes.
Right? Not somebody that's like, oh, well, yeah, I got it all together and I went to the seminary and I did this and I did that and like, look at this and I started like, no, like.
Where's that level of humility in comparison to what grace and mercy Christ has done for us, right?
Because what do we say? Have mercy on me, a sinner.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And then we talked about just those different things where, like we said last week, right? Like, turn the other cheek. Like, are you trying to get your way? Are you trying to improve your ground? Are you trying to improve your point? Are you trying to, like, here's the thing. Anytime that you're like, well, you don't know what they did to me.
Yeah. It's that we're very caught up in that's unfair.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like the Bible doesn't speak about that when it says, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. That's not fair. There's nothing fair about that.
No.
And there's nothing fair about our Lord dying on a cross for my sins.
Yeah, and he wasn't up there on the cross saying, this isn't fair. You know what he said? He said, forgive them, for they know not what they do. What?
Yeah.
How many times do we like, no, I'm not going to forgive them until they admit what they did. No.
Conditions, right?
Yeah, conditions, yeah. Conditions. Yeah. No. You need to forgive. Well, I can't forgive them because they haven't even asked for an apology. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Man, God, forget. They probably don't even realize what they did.
Hence the fruits of the Spirit. Because we're not getting to this place without them in any way, shape, or form.
And that's right here, right? And that's where, how's your fruit?
Yeah.
How's your fruit? Because here's the thing. If we're looking at this life that you built, right, this tree that's flourishing, are we going to go over there and we're going to see like shriveled up fruit? Like, you ever seen like a tree where it's like, well, that's a couple good ones, but that one looks all nasty, right? Yeah. Like, because here's the thing. The scary thing about that for us should be like, your life is on display.
Yeah.
And people can see it.
Yeah, this is very true. That's very true. I like it. I think we're going to end it there.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to end.
Powerful.
I do want to say something.
Yes.
And we talked about it before, right? Because the fruit, like we said, like the fruit is never for the fruit, nor is it for the tree.
It's never for the tree.
It's never for the tree. But what does a tree need for the fruit to grow?
Seeds.
Water.
Oh, yes. Yes.
That's, well, yeah, obviously the seeds, but what does the tree,
But
is
the seed truly needs, it has to have water.
it has to have water.
Yeah.
Where are you going to get your water from? The living water is right here.
I like it.
And Jesus says that come to me and out of
Oh, you are weary.
all you are weary, right? Come to me and there will flow torrents of living water.
I like it.
So get yourself some water. Some of that high quality H2O.
Yes. The good stuff.
The good stuff. You gonna pray us out?
Yes, let
Preach.
me pray us out. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing my brother and I together here to initially preach to ourselves, hopefully edify and encourage others who might hear this message, dear Lord, and just draw them closer to you, dear Lord. Change our hearts, change their hearts. It is a matter of the heart. And you are changing hearts and you're changing minds each and every day. We don't ever want to forget it. We want to thank you for it. And we praise you and honor you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.